Now, also last night, Impact Wrestling hosted its Hard to Kill pay-per-view, with the AEW champion Kenny Omega tagging with Anderson and Gallows, the Impact Tag Team Champions, the Good Brothers, taking on the Impact World Champion Rich Swann. And it was supposed to be the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Alex Shelley pulled out of the show due to what he called unavoidable circumstances. He was unable to travel to Nashville for the pay-per-view. He says it's not COVID and it's not an injury. So whatever it is, hopefully it is nothing too serious. Moose was chosen as his replacement. And it did not seem like an ideal choice on the surface. Moose is a heel. I know enough about Impact to know that Moose is a heel. And I believe he has a guaranteed title shot, a guaranteed shot at Rich Swann's championship in his back pocket. Now he would be teaming with him. But Moose said this, and I thought this was very clever for them to play, and really the best way for them to play this off is Moose rather said, look, I've played alongside a lot of guys in the NFL that I didn't like. But we got along on the field. We did what had to be done. Then there was a segment on the pay-per-view last night where he confronted his partners and he admitted that he hated them, but he bleeds Impact Wrestling and he will not allow any outsider to come in and disrespect them. I thought that was the best way to handle that, the way he explained that. As it turned out, as much as it sucked that the Machine Guns couldn't be together for this match, this turned out to be the best Moose match that I've ever seen in my life. I don't watch Impact on a regular basis. Maybe he's had other really great matches I'm not aware of. I've seen enough Moose matches where I haven't, I can't say I've ever sat here and been like, wow, what an amazing match that, Moose has been in. But this guy was easily one of the stars of that main event, if not the star of that main event. And I was not expecting that. So this is one of those rare instances where, maybe the match would have been even better with Alex Shelley in there, but they had to make a call. They had to put a substitute in there. It didn't look like it was going to necessarily help the match. And in the end, I think he impressed me. So if he impressed me, I'm sure he probably impressed a lot of people. And it turned out to actually be something that enhanced the match. And even better, speaking of enhancement, Josh Matthews, no longer the play-by-play announcer for Impact Wrestling. He has been promoted to the role of senior producer for all television and pay-per-view shows. He has signed a new multi-year contract with the company, but in his place now is the team that he started last night, the new team of Matt Striker and D'Lo Brown, who, from what I heard, and I only watched a few segments including the main event, but from what I heard of them last night, they have potential as a team. They were not great, but there's potential, I think, for them to gel together. And look, Striker is an improvement over Matthews. He can be very hit or miss, and that's really the thing about Matt Striker. He can be very hit or miss, as we know from the Lucha Underground days. I saw every single episode of Lucha Underground. I enjoyed him and Vampiro as a team. It's too bad they couldn't bring him in, put Vampiro and Striker back together. So he has moments where he's actually quite good, and then he has other moments where it's just cringe city. That has always been the story, I think, with Matt Striker. Sometimes he's on point. Other times he is the world's most obnoxious man. I rolled my eyes into the back of my skull and saw my brain last night when, before Don Callis introduced Kenny Omega for the main event, Striker said that years from now, people are going to tell their kids where they were the night that Kenny Omega stepped into an Impact Wrestling ring. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ugh. Ugh. I predict that will not happen. I predict that will not happen. Now, he at least was trying to make it sound like a big deal, but that's a perfect example of him going overboard, okay? Nobody is going to be telling their kids about the night that Kenny Omega stepped into an Impact Wrestling ring. And if they do, their kid is going to look at them and go, so what? But I can appreciate the fact that he was trying to make this out to be a big moment. But there's just certain things, like there's certain ways to phrase it, there's certain things to say, and certain things not to say that are just going to make people roll their eyes. And that was one of those moments last night. The only match I watched from the pay-per-view was the main event. Omega came to the ring. He was wearing an orange Halloween-themed Bullet Club shirt. Anderson and Gallows also had Bullet Club gear on. New Japan owns the Bullet Club IP. I am reminded also that Impact sent Chris Bay to work the Super J Cup. So there's definitely something going on here with Impact and New Japan. This does not happen without someone's consent. I don't know how deep the relationship goes. I don't know if it's going to lead to something bigger. I know Tama Tonga, I think on his podcast, was saying some cross things about Omega and the use of Bullet Club imagery and stuff, and it sounds like a total work to me, so something is definitely going on here. But as soon as I saw the Bullet Club stuff, this was the first thing I thought. I said, wait a minute, why? They're coming out in Bullet Club stuff. They clearly want people to see that they're wearing Bullet Club stuff. That just doesn't happen unless there's some sort of agreement with or approval from New Japan. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. The match itself, I thought, was a lot of fun. There was a top rope Spanish fly that Moose, who's a big, big man, Moose gave to Kenny Omega. Rich Swann caught Omega with a Poison Rana and a 450, but Kenny kicked out. And in the end, the AEW champion pinned the Impact World Champion after a V-trigger and a one-winged angel. Clean in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. Fun match. I was surprised by how good Moose was in this match. The finish, honestly, seeing Swann just get pinned right in the middle by Omega, that coupled with Moose's performance in this match, that finish got me more interested in seeing a match between Kenny Omega and Moose than seeing Kenny Omega against Rich Swann. No doubt that will be a very good, wrestling match when those two meet in the ring, which I believe is absolutely going to happen. But now I find myself more interested in seeing Omega and Moose, which I think might be the plan for a little bit further down the road. Moose, we know, has a guaranteed Impact title shot. So I can see things playing out this way. Kenny Omega is going to wrestle Rich Swann. I don't know if it's going to be only for the Impact World Championship or if they're going to do winner take all, title for title. I almost feel like if they do that, it gives the finish away. Because nobody in their right mind is going to believe that Rich Swann is going to win the AEW title. Right? Never say never. Well, that's about as close to never as you can get. That's just not going to happen. I actually think it might be better for them not to put the AEW title on the line and just have the Impact title on the line. Because he pinned the Impact champion. Right? Rich Swann didn't pin Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega pinned Rich Swann. So you can argue that, look, you don't deserve a shot at this, but I pinned you in your company on your pay-per-view. Therefore, I want a shot at your title. And if only one title is on the line, well, maybe then people can believe that maybe Rich Swann is going to get his win back and pin Kenny Omega. So I actually think it might be better to not make a match like that winner take all. But I think they meet possibly at the next Impact pay-per-view, which is this Rebellion show on April 24th. They showed an ad for it last night, and the pay-per-view logo has an Omega symbol right in the middle. It's visible right in the middle of the logo. I think they meet on that pay-per-view. Kenny Omega one-on-one against Rich Swann for the Impact World title. Omega wins the championship. He is now the AEW champion and the Impact World champion, which I didn't think was going to happen. When I did my predictions and everything, I was talking more about Kenny winning the NWA title from Nick Aldis and not taking the Impact World title, but after the events of last night, I'm having a different vision here. They meet, Kenny wins the title, and then he ends up defending and losing the Impact World title to Moose later in the year at Bound for Glory. I'm assuming Bound for Glory is still their big annual event, unless that's changed since the time that I was watching Impact full time. Because here's the reason why I would wait. I know some people might be like, wow, that's a long time. You can't wait that long. But Kenny Omega should not be losing anytime soon. Kenny Omega should not have his shoulders pinned to the mat by anybody in any promotion for several more months. Bound for Glory is usually in October. That's a month before I have Kenny Omega in my predictions for 2021 dropping the AEW World title to Hangman Page at Full Gear. So if things were to work out that way, well, maybe you have Hangman showing up at Bound for Glory the month before to provide the assist, even if it's just to keep the Good Brothers from interfering in the match. Kind of keeps them at bay, makes it a more fair one-on-one match. And Moose, or whoever it may be at that time, but let's say Moose, beats Omega and dethrones him to take back the Impact World Championship. He is the savior. He has brought the belt back home to Impact Wrestling. Now you got to do it in a way, though, that does not make it seem like the only reason he won is because another AEW guy got involved, and without his help, he couldn't do it on his own. There's a way where you gotta do it where it doesn't come off that way. But again, I think Omega needs to run for a while before he loses. Like Roman Reigns, it's the same exact thing. The Tribal Chief stuff has been great. Roman Reigns needs to run with this at least through WrestleMania before he finally loses. And it's the same thing with Kenny Omega. So I think that is kind of where we're headed here. Taking that title, and then maybe Moose ends up being the savior of Impact. But you got to take your time with it. Don't rush into anything. Kenny should not be losing.